Would you not wonder if you get the ticket to space in the next lane of your ticket window when you're getting your ticket to Sydney? What will be your reaction? Would you also go to buy the ticket? If you do not buy the ticket, you'll definitely be inquiring about the whole matter at least. Let's understand the whole issue. What's the secret of space trips? Now the common man can also travel to space. But who's behind this? Who planned these space trips? Guess and comment in the comment section. Elon Musk wondered about the whole planet by setting this idea in the mind of his scientists, and they are almost ready to organize this trip. Space tourism is here. NASA, with the help of Musk, is all set to launch its first ever space tourism mission to the International Space Station. The mission will lift off from Florida's Kennedy Space Center. In a first, the Axiom AX-1 mission to the ISS will have an all-private crew aboard a SpaceX Crew Dragon, including 3 paying customers who will spend 10 days in space, out of which 8 days will be aboard the ISS. 4 private citizens made history Friday by launching into orbit on the first wholly private mission to the International Space Station with an all-civilian crew. The Axiom mission, known as the AX-1, isn't the first time an all-civilian crew has flown to space. That milestone was set last year when SpaceX launched 4 private citizens on a 3-day orbital joyride aboard the company's Crew Dragon capsule. It is, however, the first time that an all-civilian crew will visit the space station, marking a key breakthrough for both space tourism and the rapidly expanding commercial spaceflight industry. The launch followed a pair of high-profile trips to suborbital space last year by billionaire entrepreneurs Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos. It's also just the latest example of how human spaceflight, once limited to governments and their space agencies, is now flourishing as a commercial enterprise. 4 men are taking part in the AX-1 mission, led by Lopez Alegria. The former astronaut is joined by 3 paying customers on the journey: American real estate investor Larry Connor, Canadian businessman Mark Pathy, and Ethan Stebe, a former fighter pilot from Israel. This collection of pioneers, the first space crew of its kind, represents a defining moment in humanity's eternal pursuit of exploration and progress, Lopez Alegria said in a statement back in January when the mission was first announced. The crew members launched in SpaceX's Crew Dragon capsule atop the company's Falcon 9 rocket. Less than 10 minutes after liftoff, the booster's reusable first stage successfully landed upright on the deck of a drone ship parked off the coast of Florida. SpaceX officials said the newly returned rocket stage has been used 5 times, adding that the Crew Dragon capsule carrying the X-1 crew is also recycled hardware, embarking on its 3rd trip to space. The X-1 crew will now spend more than 20 hours of a journey to the International Space Station. The foursome is expected to stay 8 days at the orbiting outpost, where they will participate in a host of scientific experiments and philanthropic projects, including health-related research for the Mayo Clinic and the Montreal Children's Hospital. Connor, Pathy, and Stebe paid $55 million apiece for the experience, as the Associated Press reported this year. Axiom Space has called the X-1 mission a precursor to commercializing low Earth orbit. The company said it intends to fly at least 3 other commercial flights to the ISS and is eventually planning to construct its own privately funded space station in orbit. Space tourism surged last year. Blue Origin, the company founded by Jeff Bezos of Amazon, started carrying paying customers on brief suborbital trips to the edge of space. Virgin Galactic flew its founder, Richard Branson, on a short flight and began selling tickets for future flights. In September, a SpaceX Crew Dragon launch chartered by Jared Isaacman, a billionaire entrepreneur, was the first trip to orbit on which none of the passengers was a professional astronaut. For that mission, named Inspiration 4, Mr. Isaacman decided to give opportunities to 3 people who had never been able to afford the trip themselves. That trip did not go to the space station, and the 4 spent 3 days floating in orbit before returning to Earth. By contrast, each of Axiom space travelers is paying their own way, and the experience is different. Earlier private travelers to the space station, most recently Yusaku Maezawa, a Japanese billionaire, traveled on Russian Soyuz rockets and were accompanied by professional Russian astronauts. For this flight, Axiom and SpaceX are in charge of the mission from launch until the capsule enters the vicinity of the space station. During a news conference last month, Mr. Connor objected to being called a space tourist. The space tourists, they'll spend 10 or 15 hours training, 5 to 10 minutes in space, he said. And by the way, that's fine. In our case, depending upon our rate, we've spent anywhere from 750 to over 1,000 hours training. At least, in theory, this is the future that NASA has been working toward for decades. In 1984, during the Reagan administration, the law that established NASA was amended to encourage private enterprise off Earth, but plans to privatize the operation of NASA space shuttles were shelved after the loss of Challenger in 1986. Instead, it was the Soviet space program in the fading years of communism that was ahead of NASA in selling access to space. When the International Space Station opened up, Dennis Tito, an American entrepreneur, was the first Russian-hosted tourist to visit in 2001. Russia stopped taking private travelers after 2009. With the impending retirement of the space shuttles, NASA needed to buy available seats on Russian rockets for its astronauts to get to and from the space station. In the last few years, NASA's opened up to the idea of space tourism. Jim Bridenstine, the NASA administrator during the Trump administration, often spoke of NASA's being one customer out of many and how that would greatly reduce costs for NASA. But for NASA to be one customer of many, there have to be other customers. Eventually, other applications like pharmaceutical research or zero-gravity manufacturing may finally come to fruition. For now, the most promising market is wealthy people who pay to visit space themselves. While Axiom Space now declines to comment when asked how much it is charging to take people to the International Space Station, the company did provide a ticket price a few years ago, $55 million per passenger. Much of the price is tied up in the rocket and spacecraft needed to get to orbit, and once there, customers also must pay for accommodations and amenities. In 2019, NASA set up a price list for use of the space station by private companies. For space tourists, NASA said it would charge companies like Axiom Space $35,000 a night per person for the use of sleeping quarters and amenities, including air, water, the internet, and the toilet. Last year, NASA said it was raising the prices for future trips to the station. In some areas, the Axiom 1 crew members underwent much of the same training as NASA astronauts, especially for safety procedures and everyday living in orbit. Ms. Weigel gave the toilet as an example. They needed to learn how the space station toilets work, but, as guests, they didn't need to train on how to repair the toilet if it malfunctioned. When they board the space station, the Axiom visitors will receive an orientation on what to do in various emergencies and how to use facilities. That actually looks pretty similar to what our crews do for the first day and a half, Ms. Weigel said. After that, the Axiom astronauts will go off and do their own activities, which include 25 scientific experiments they plan to conduct during the 8 days on the space station. The experiments include medical work planned with institutions like the Mayo Clinic, the Cleveland Clinic, and Montreal Children's Hospital. The Axiom astronauts will also conduct some technology demonstrations, like self-assembling robots that could be used to build future spacecraft in space. The activities of the Axiom visitors are coordinated with those of the other crew members on the space station so that people are not trying to use the same facility at the same time. It's more than a 1,000-piece puzzle, I'll put it that way, to fit all that together, Ms. Weigel said. With a larger than usual number of people staying on the U.S. segment, some of the sleeping quarters are makeshift in various parts of the station. One person will be sleeping in the Crew Dragon, Ms. Weigel said. Hey, hope you enjoyed watching this video. Have thoughts on the video? Well, sound off in the comments below. If you like this video, then give the video a thumbs up and smash that subscribe button, and you'll never miss any updates.